future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Karolina Pelc.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karolina Pelc. I'm a founder and CEO of SharePlay, and I'm your podcast for iGaming Next, podcast host for iGaming Next. It's been a while since one of my podcasts came out, but I'm happy to be back now. And today I've got Savvas Fellas with us. Thanks for making time, Savvas.
Thanks for having me.
So Savvas is a founder and managing director of Lindar Media, the company behind one of the most exciting and fastest growing casino brands in the UK. I'm not going to go through his whole bio because I would like him to take that and tell us a little bit about his journey. But we met during the pandemic, and throughout the pandemic, we remained Zoom friends.
Yeah.
But, you know, I really value our relationship, and, you know, you feel strongly about the founder support. And I think talking to you just exposed me to so many cool things about your company that I wanted to give it a bit more spotlight. You did get Rising Star Awards, so it's not like people don't know who Mr. Q are, but I think maybe they don't know all the cool aspects and how great your guys are doing. So, which is why I wanted you to have you as a guest.
Perfect.
Let's start from the beginning. What's Mr. Q? When did it get founded? How did you come to founding an online casino operator? It's a pretty brave decision.
We've also met in person, so we're not just Zoom friends.
Oh yes, of course, since then.
I have a background in media, performance media, so direct response media, and I used to work in an agency, and we were down the road from Betway. We're next door to them in Camden, and one of my old bosses said, this company is pretty big, and affiliate marketing at that time was really big. And he said, if someone had an affiliate site right now for reviews, it's a great opportunity. I knew he'd never do it, and so I took a week off work and did it, just to kind of practice my own direct response marketing skills. And it kind of evolved from there. And the natural progression from being an affiliate is to be a white label operator. Mm-hmm. And we had sites with 888, Nectan, Skill on Net were the main ones. We were big partners with 888, but being a partner and white labeling out a solution, it's good. It's really good, and you really kind of get to exercise a lot of skills, but it's so limiting. And whenever you go back to your provider, there's usually some sort of problems that you're going to face in order to get to where you want to get to go, because they might not have the same agenda as you. And so that kind of creates frustration. And ultimately, we said, let's just build it ourselves. Let's just take away the element of headache, and we'll be responsible for our own headaches. And we knew nothing about building software, nothing. And we basically set out on that journey, and it took us about 3 years to build it on a bootstrap budget whilst maintaining an existing business. And then we launched it in August 2018. And we when we did this, I should say that we noticed certain problems with the suppliers that we were using, not through any fault of their own, but because of when they were when they were developed. The technology moves really fast. And one of the issues was that the technology was a bit old and archaic. They were dealing with a lot of legacy, a lot of technical debt that was likely not to get paid back. So we said, let's build it with the most sophisticated architecture. Let's build it with what they potentially view as their utopia. Let's build their utopia. And that's exactly what we did. And we launched it in August 2018, and it has literally grown every single month.
Well, I know I talked to some providers, and, the growth is pretty staggering, and especially concerning your UK brand. So in the times where you hear about brands exiting UK, for a new starter to come in and do well, I think the question is, which I titled my podcast with, how do you do it? Is it even possible with this increasing pressure on regulation and rising prices from suppliers and all the stuff affecting profits? How do you go about it? How did you manage to achieve growth and at that level?
It is an aggressive landscape. It is very tricky to navigate. But I think if your fundamentals are really strong, so you have good technology and you know what you can and can't do, I think it becomes a little bit easier to navigate. And being late to the party isn't necessarily a bad thing. Everyone early on was like, "What are you doing? The boat, the ship has sailed. Like you shouldn't be doing this." And there's something to be said for being late to the party. I kind of usually compare it to being the younger sibling of a big family where all of your siblings have done all the things that siblings do, tattoos and piercings, and they get in trouble with them. And you see it and you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to avoid that. And we did that. And so being late was an advantage for us. But it's led by technology. I think there's a big philosophy on our side to not think like a casino. There's a time and a place for it, but fundamentally we need to think like technologists, like data scientists, because if we think like casinos, we're going to inherit casino problems. If we think like a data scientist and a developer and an engineer, we'll be able to navigate things better. Automations, relying on your system, having the peace of mind to know that when you say you do something from a compliance or a regulatory point of view, that the system is competent, it's been stress tested, and it will do it hands down. And there's even backups of that if that fails. So I think it's the technology piece is a big thing for me.
So, following up on technology, I know a little bit about that because, I've seen a little bit of a product and it is quite impressive, especially, I'm product manager from background. So when I see a pretty cool back office, I get excited. So you really do bet on proprietary technology and building everything in-house. I know that you guys have plans to launch a game studio with a really cool concept for daily game. Can you tell us a little bit about that, proprietary technology, but also about your plans for games and how you go about it?
Yeah, the proprietary thing is exactly that. You control your own destiny, and another one of the kind of overarching philosophies that I try and cultivate is you live and die by product, and you'll know from your own product development and your background that product is kind of key to everything. And so my job is cultivating that continually now as the company grows. We're 57, 60 people now. So I have to continue to make sure that they are also anchored to that idea. And then at the same time, we want to build on that. And so we've got a studio called Gooseycorn, which is a goose with a unicorn.
I figured.
Well, the whole point of a game studio is that it's supposed to be fun. And every time I mention Gooseycorn, it usually gets a smile. And you can go onto the gooseycorn.com website and you can just click on this goose. And that's, again, a philosophy that we're going to try and maintain with that. Fun and exciting. So that
you're going to trademark that name. You're going to trademark that name, I think.
Yeah, I should do, actually. And you know all about trademarks. So we have that, and that was the initial plan. The initial plan when we launched it was to build a bingo platform, to build an affiliate platform, and to also build a content studio. But you often kind of make compromises, especially when you know nothing about software development. So 2 of those ideas went out the window, and now we're at a stage where we can reintroduce them with that startup mentality. So Gooseycorn, there's a few games in development. There's an RGS in development, and that will be exclusive on Mr. Q. And there is also a daily free game, which basically, it's lightning roulette as a daily free game. So we're really trying to run with it and be as progressive as we can. And daily free games are just creative comping. But we believe that there's a lot of synergies between those 2 products as well. And so we really want to enhance the user experience on all aspects. We don't just want to be a wrapper for third-party content. That's not particularly exciting or challenging. So these 2 elements, if we reintroduce them, will be great. And we have no plans to build an affiliate platform.
Sure. And what would you say is your key sort of competence in dealing with all the regulatory challenges? Is this, the fact that you have all this data science in-house and can really do your targeting well? Because everybody keeps just moaning about how difficult it is to do any kind of marketing or CRM in this market, and you claim to be pretty successful at that. So what's the, secret?
I think we're also, there is an element of luck. There's always a luck in this. So having one brand, granted in a hostile and mature regulatory environment, is an advantage. If we had several brands in several different geos, I think our challenges would be completely different, and we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. So keeping with one brand, there's no B2B to this business. It's just one B2C product. So I think that keeps everything lean. Everyone can focus on a single set of problems without getting overwhelmed. Your headcount is maintained. And I think it goes back to the data and the technology piece. So we have a real-time data feed of every single event in our platform, which is over 250 data points streaming in. I have access to it where you can just see them just literally whiz by. And that's nice, and it's nice to look at, and it's fancy, but you have to be able to analyze it. So data science has become a huge part of this business, huge. But then you also need to be able to action on it. And when it comes to actioning, that's where the technology starts to take over from the data piece to say, okay, you want to show them this, you want to request this, you want to limit account activity, you want to disable deposits, you want to disable increase of deposit limits, but enable XYZ. And so that piece needs to be extremely robust. And I think that's what we have where others don't have, because of how late we were to the party.
Yes, I wanted to say it's a bit of luck, but it's also timing, where you come in with all this technology that caters exactly to the challenges that are introduced by regulation, right? But so you said now, it's important that you had focus and you're doing B2C and one brand, a specific market. But, with your deposit levels monthly, you're no longer a small startup. You're entering the, I would say, medium leagues. And I think it's also visible in your nominations this year. I think last year we were nominated for Rising Star. This year it's Slots Operator of the Year, right? And
we have Slots Operator, in-house product, and there's another one which has left my head.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, it's the affiliate program. Sorry, my head of acquisition would kill me if I didn't get that one.
Well, so yeah, I hope I'm going to keep fingers crossed that you win some of these. But what's the next step? Because you've already been scaling, and is the focus to keep growing in this market where you're really on your own turf and the rules of the game, or are you going to follow the suit of others that expand geographically? There's a lot of different challenging regulatory markets where your technology could also give you advantage, and let's not forget about the US and the hungry M&A folks. What's your view on that?
In general, on the US thing, there's a fairly famous saying from Warren Buffett, which is "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy." And that has always kind of been the view that I've anchored to with regards to the UK. Whilst everyone is scared of the UK, that is your time to act. And whilst everyone is going a little bit crazy over the US because of how in its infancy it is, that is your time to just hang back and just observe. And we've taken the same philosophy there. And on the expansion, it's a bit tricky because we're very UK focused, and we all know that the UK can be hostile and is likely to be unpredictable from both a B2B perspective and a B2C perspective. So we need to kind of tread carefully. There are expansions for Canada. So we will be applying for an Ontario license. There is a pending MGA license. We have a big headquartered office in Malta, which is being put together now at the brew house. So there's plans for expansion, but we need to be respectful to the current business, because you don't want to lose that focus. So it's
Well,
incremental gains at this point.
sometimes someone can help you with other areas of focus as well, right? There's strategic partnerships as well that I'm sure you'll be approached about, considering, because it is a really unique story that you guys have currently with this growth. And this takes me to my next question, because when we talk, our conversation vary from you showing me your latest TV ad or the storyboards, or some screenshots of your games. And you're a big company now. You're the founder, you're the managing director. How do you split your time between all those different areas? Are you already at the stage where you've learned how to let go of things?
No, it's by far my biggest problem, and I'm it's difficult because it's rare that you get to speak to founders who have gone through it without, as an industry, we're quite closed, and there's never really been mentorship. You hear it more and more these days, but there's never been someone to say, listen, be mindful of this, watch out for that, make sure you have a balance of life, be healthy, all of that stuff. I'm kind of learning on the job, much like I'm sure they did as well. But time management, I would have to say, is my weakest link, and I really want to get better at it. Managing inboxes, managing Slack, understanding who your next big recruits should be. We've kept things very, very lean. So 57, 60 people, doing some kind of very mature numbers, let's say. That can be a good thing because you're lean and you have good profitability, but it can also be a bad thing. So you have to be able to look ahead and see what you need. I'm figuring it out.
I mean, I'm great at time management, but I just don't have enough time.
I can tell.
So the management doesn't help me much with that. I need to also learn how to let go. But what you mentioned on mentorship is something I think it's worth highlighting in this podcast, is that both me and you feel strongly about the need for the industry to be more open, for the founders to speak to each other, knowledge sharing, challenges, discussion, and so on. So we already have that ongoing conversation. I have that similar conversation with Leo from Huddle, who is a sports betting startup, and I think if there was some facilitation of these conversations, this would be really great. I know you also have some personal mentors that, from different stage of the companies that help you out. Tell me now about the pandemic a little bit, because the pandemic has hit your team at the exact scale up time. And how did this impact on you guys? You were just about to open an office in Malta. You've got pretty decent office in the UK, and all of a sudden, all these people have to work from home. How did you manage through the pandemic, and what's your approach to the sort of working model now? Is it hybrid? Is it home based?
Just on the point of time management, whenever I'm stressed about time management, I think of you, because you take on way more than I feel like I'm taking on. So then I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. I don't have a podcast and I don't have all these other things going on. Mine is just a purely work-life thing. In terms of pandemic, it was. We kind of acted early on, so I think things started to get pretty noisy at the initial stages around, I think it was late April, and we made the decision around Feb to cut all ties, send everyone home, and fortunately, I place myself very close to the development team in terms of their processes, in terms of their thinking, because I can relate to them that way. Even like when we were sat in the office, I would be in the middle of them so I could join in on the discussions and understand and learn. And they had daily stand-ups, they had retrospectives, they were good communicators on digitally, so Slack. They didn't have problems around where you were physically placed. And so at that point, by osmosis, I'd taken that in. I was like, right, we're all going to go home every day, CRM, acquisition, product development, split into all its different subcategories. We have stand-ups. I'll try and join all of them, and then we'll take it from there. It was just about clear communication, not having conversations in the shadows, and just being completely open with everyone about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's been something that we're not going to turn away from. So there's a hybrid model now. I think the balance between work and office and working from home, I don't think is quite right for me. It fine. I'm here every day. But people, I know from talking to my Maltese team, they really want an office. They really want a creative space. They really want to be able to come up to someone else and just talk to them about something that they're working on. And there's lots of exciting things in the background. And they lack that. So it's still optional, but the consensus seems to be I want a space for work and I want a space for home, but I don't want to completely abandon my freedom of my work-life balance. So we'll try and accommodate. It's 2021.
I get it. And I have to say, I'm seeing this also very clearly with my team, because, when you're thinking of a remote-only company, what comes to mind is all the savings on the office space in all these different countries. And it isn't the case, because you need to reinvest this money into travel so that people can meet, because it's very, very important to spend time with your team. And I can see such difference when we are brainstorming over Zoom versus when we meet, on the back of a conference and so on.
Yeah, so every Wednesday, people who are here come to the office. They're not here now for various different reasons. A lot of people are on holiday as well. But when we're here, you can literally, it's kind of palatable, the team energy. And I really miss that. And from talking to everyone, they seem to miss that too. You can sense it, you can feel it. And I want to just reintroduce some of that. And then also the novelty of everyone working in the same room. That's because obviously we're talking about a handful of the 60 people. So we're going to try and get everyone from all these different locations to one location, and rather have like a big jolly, we have a hybrid of working and a jolly, and also free time where you can do your thing, because now it's a novelty to work in the same space together with all these faces, some of whom you've never met. And I'm really excited about that.
And tell me a little bit about your sort of team strategy, recruitment strategy, because I know you're very proud of your team as well, and of your people, pretty low turnover, loyal people. What makes you the company and the people do want to work for? And also explain to me a little bit the Lindar media versus Mr. Q, so that when someone does want to work for you, they understand that they'll be working with Mr. Q product.
People are everything. Your team and who you work with, and that culture is kind of everything. And cultivating it is part of the job now. Cultivating all of those philosophies: live and die by product, technology first, data. Don't always think like a casino. There's a time and place for that, but try and think differently about your problems, and you'll be able to solve them in a better way. Hiring is hard. Hiring is hard for anyone. Recruiters, I used to be very pessimistic about recruiters, but I have taken a completely different approach now, where I believe they can really add serious value to a growing business and give you the right people. But I still try and have an interview with every single person, and I'm trying to streamline that business. But it's a bit of a abstract sixth sense for is this person right? Are they passionate? Passion is the big thing. Like in an interview, if someone starts referring to us as we, so they've included themselves in that's always a really good sign for me. And a lot of it is passion and experience, and we have some seriously good people as well, who are very competent. You can be competent, but you can be a bad person. And I don't think there's really a good place for those sort of people.
It's interesting that at a level of 60 people, you still take part in interviews, but I'm at 10 and I still do all of this, of course, because I sort of believe that at the moment it's the employee choice to come and work for you, not so much your choice to hire someone. So if you're not in interview at some point, you're missing out on the opportunity to sell your vision and sell your passion and really speak to them from sort of your heart, right? And this is what gets people wanting to work for you, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's a great point, to sell your vision. and I've always done that. I have a pretty good refined pitch now when it comes to recruitment. So showing them the product, again, which cultivates live and die by product and your philosophy towards good product. And when they see that, especially from a technology point of view, if you show a developer a Kafka stream of every single event coming into your system in real time, usually their eyes light up. So I take the chance every single time to do it, but I'm trying to figure out now how sustainable that can be. Can it be automated? Can I keep doing this?
Yeah,
I'm still
sure.
undecided on that.
I have a question now for you from the perspective of, I am on a big mission to try to normalize sort of talking about being a founder together with the highs, but also with the lows, so that people know what they expect and they don't just shy away from trying to get on that journey, If you look at your sort of the journey you've gone through, what would you say were the biggest surprises? What is different to what you have expected before embarking on it? And what were the bigger challenges from the founder perspective, not business perspective?
I guess it's there's a level of naivety that played its part. If you set off to build something and you think, oh, it's just, you trivialize it, that can catch you out. And it's how you adapt to that once you realize, oh, it's not as trivial as I thought. It's actually quite challenging to build software because you have to think about all these things that previously I hadn't known about. But gradually, as you creep that curtain of knowledge back and you start to realize about dependencies and kind of architecture when it comes to software development, you realize that you're really deep at that point. So it's having the ability to adapt, but I think also having a vision. We didn't just wake up and make it up as we went along. We were like, okay, there's a problem here that we're not too keen on. And we understand why there's a problem because these things were built a long time ago. But what would happen if you built it today? Would those problems that we have exist? And so then you start to formulate a vision. And I think anchoring yourself as a founder to that vision and making sure that you steer everyone onto it, that is the biggest thing. And not losing focus, because take the US, for example. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the US conversation. It's very easy to kind of look over them like, well, if I readjusted some of my focus and I made some compromises with my vision, I might be able to get a foot in the door and that could yield to X, Y, and Z. But I think there has to be a level of discipline. Say, no, this doesn't sit in with what I wanted to achieve. It will come further down the line at the right time. So there's a level of discipline that has to come with the territory. Sure.
And in terms of personal traits, if you had to name sort of traits that people need to find in themselves when they want to embark on a founder journey, from your experience, what would those be?
I know what mine are. My wife reminds me daily. My business partner reminds me daily. Impatient. I'm extremely, extremely impatient. I cannot wait for tomorrow. And that can sometimes yield problems. But for the most part, if you can harness it right, and if you can think right, you can get stuff done. Because I remember I was watching there's a good series on YouTube called Bitscaling Businesses. And it was one from the guys who set up LinkedIn. And he gets a load of founders in and they talk about how did you go from this to that? And we're talking about much bigger volumes. And Eric Schmidt, who ran Google for most of its formative years, he was talking about when you release a product, think about the first iPhone. The first iPhone barely worked. There was no app store. There was no native apps. It was just barely worked. And so if you use that and just get stuff done, as rough as it might be around the edges, barely worked, then you can just build on that and build on that and build on that, and to the point where you have, iPhone 13 Pro Max and everything else. So that impatience allowed me to do that, because everything that we were pushing out the door, I was like, just ship it. As rough as it is, just ship it. We'll fix it afterwards. It's not like we have masses of customers and we're not spending as much as we are now. We'll fix it. And
I think
it
I need to
forces
make a note of that.
developers, it forces developers to be like, oh, but it could be this, it could be that. Like, just get it out the door. We'll deal with it afterwards.
Yeah, I totally need to make a note of that because I think that's going to be a big challenge for me, especially with publicity that we created for ourselves comes the pressure of wanting to release a rock star kick-ass product from the beginning, and then you can prolong it in time if you're going to want to get it perfect. But always before I was with you on the ship it, just get it out and keep iterating on it, get it better with each iteration. So I'm gonna have to revisit that approach from the past because I think I'm focusing too much on my perfectionist approach right now.
Yeah, the Eric Schmidt podcast is it's a video thing on YouTube. It's really, really good. And when you think about it and you think about what that first iPhone looked like, what Facebook looked like, and all of these things, you go back to it and retrospectively, they barely did just work. They don't do what they do now. So there's a lot in impatience, but you also have to have an element of, I always want it to be better. I want my process to be better. I want my people to be better. I want to, there has to be a level of dissatisfaction on some level at all times because perfection is unattainable. You'll never get to a point of perfection. So then you get into a thing of, I need to enjoy the journey. I need to enjoy this part of it because I don't want to look back and regret my journey because one day it will end.
Yeah, sure. And if I could ask, I know that you guys have a very unique and sort of modern technology stack and a lot of sort of differentiators, but is there anyone in the industry that you do look up to when it comes to sort of product offering or the more mature companies, that already have made it to that, tier 2, tier 1 type of operator?
Yeah, Casumo. Casumo, I think, is an outstanding platform, and shout out to Shelley as well because she, although not the founder of Casumo, she's been quite helpful and vocal in certain areas when I've spoke to her. Casumo, I think, is very good. The branding was always exceptional. I think GameSys as a product, having had their own bingo proprietary platform and the game studio side, I always took a leaf out of their book because they had this strong emphasis on let's own the most of the supply chain. Let's be the content provider. Let's also be the platform. So I've always taken a leaf out of their book.
Which has paid off recently for them as well. So listen, Savvas, I'm going to start wrapping up because I've learned already, I've analyzed sort of my podcast that it is the perfect timing to wrap it around 30 minutes because people seem to not find more time in their diaries to watch. Is there, any other thing that you'd like to share at this moment? Apart of, come work for Mr. Q, we are the
best. Not really, not quite like that, but we are in the process. I didn't say earlier, but we're in the process of we've gone through it, of a rebrand and repurposing the entire product. So our plans for 2022 are to rip it all apart and rebuild it. And that process has already happened. And it's, for this industry, I think it's quite abstract to have a brand consultant to say, who is your brand archetype? Who do you want to appeal to? What does that look like? What does that? Who would that be in the public eye if you were to kind of put a label on someone? And so it has been by far one of the most interesting processes I've ever been through. We actually worked with a company, Multiple Casual Business, and they guided us through the whole thing. And when I first set out, I was like, this is a bit fluffy. And I was on the fence. To now, I'm like, this was really necessary. And I can't wait to reintroduce the product because everything up until now was, well, I like that. It looks nice. Let's go with that. And so you're sitting on legacy design. And I really want our product to reflect what goes on behind the scenes, which is what most people talk about. So that's a big upcoming thing for me.
It's not going to be a change of name, right? It's just a change of, or will you change the name as well?
We won't change the name, but the entire branding and the entire style of everything changes. The debate was to change the name or to reintroduce Mr. Q. Is it MRQ? Is it Mr. Q? But we're not really disrupting that too much. But there's a lot of aesthetical changes and product changes.
Sure. It's interesting that you have this experience because I had the exact opposite experience with brand consultants in the past. And I was always like, oh my God, I can't stand all this
Yeah.
fluff and all this, going through stuff that I've known for the last 10 years. And now I almost need to educate someone about that to tell me what the brand should be. But I understand that in a B2C space, it's very different. You're right. You really need to know your customer. You need to appeal to them. Whereas in B2B, at this stage, I was still quite comfortable just going, it's going to be called shared play.
Yeah,
so,
definitely finger in the air mentality. I think the thing is, there's bad ones, brand consultants, and there's exceptional brand consultants. We had loads of workshops. We racked up tens and tens of hours collectively trying to figure out which space of the market we wanted to carve out, how we would go about it, what that looks like, what it sounds like. It was a really eye-opening experience. I loved it.
Well, we can't wait to look forward. When will it relaunch? Where can you expect the rebrand?
There'll be a reskin in Q1, and then as we gradually work through next year, that reskin will then it'll become a different product. But for the moment, we're just skinning everything to be this new design concept.
Sure. Well, good luck with that. And again,
Thanks.
good luck with the upcoming awards. I'll probably be at the event, so I'll be cheering for you. And thank you very much for your time today. I think this is very, honest and candid conversation, which are some of my favorite. I'm glad you were open to share some of your experience. You have a great thing going with your business, and hope for the best still for the coming years with that.
Thanks, Karolina. Can't wait to work with you and your product.
Yeah, hopefully soon. Thanks, Savvas.
Thanks.